maybe 3 weeks after putting almost everything I've ever made on Bandcamp, I was approached in my emails by a guy by the name of Elliot Stutzer asking about using my music for an ad campaign, which, I was a little skeptical because Bandcamp in the mailer actually says beware of frauds and scams and all that. So they
Sure.
do their part to kind of raise your eyebrows. But, I did a ton of internet sleuthing. This Elliot Stutzer guy is a real guy, real guitar professor in Anchorage, Alaska. They're one of one, and their website looked legit. They claimed their client was Pico Interactive, which I would later find out is sort of the ByteDance competitor to Meta's virtual reality headsets. So legit company. And they said that they wanted 4 songs for an ad campaign about an artist or young artists who feel like they're in inconquerable circumstances, showing them that they can conquer whatever it is they're going through and fulfill their dreams and live out their dreams. It was really on brand for exactly what my music was doing. It felt like somebody had found my music, had a very specific use case for my music that aligns with the exact branding of the music and exact thematic kind of tones of the songs themselves. But it started to get a little fishy as we started talking through it. The contract looked great, and I'm very fortunate. My cousin's an attorney, so I would look through everything with him, and I would just definitely throw in the disclaimer here. Do not do anything like this without an attorney, because it's absolutely pivotal. If you don't have an attorney formally that you have that you work with formally and pay, reach out to a family member, a friend. That's what I did. I don't have a formal attorney, but I reached out to my cousin, who's a prosecutor. He understands a lot more than I do. He said for the most part it checked out. He just couldn't find anything about the CEO of the company, who claimed to be Greg Young. And he couldn't find out very much about the company. And he felt that the contract was too artist friendly to be true, which...
No, so basically what happened here is an intricate social engineering. It's basically a few steps ahead of those DMs you might get where they're like, hey, I checked out your song so-and-so. It was really cool.
Yeah.
I love the lyrics, even though it's an instrumental. But this was a little more, it almost feels like human, right? Where it's like they were able to detect the thematic content of your music. It's almost as if they actually listened to your music, perhaps. And
It was shockingly specific. Yeah.
Yeah. So, no, that's scary. That's very scary.
Yeah. There were certainly yellow flags. And, that's where it was really nice to have an attorney, because I'm at this point emotionally invested, right?
Yes.
And then when we saw the contract, essentially what they wanted to do was they claimed because of past lawsuits, the client prefers to pay the artist directly, and the artist then reimburses essentially the agency for their work, booking content creators and generating these campaigns themselves, so on.
So that flag is getting a little more red. Once you start redistributing funds and, paying people back.
It has. Yeah. It definitely has gone up. But I'm still somewhat of a risk taker. So I say, okay, they're doing a direct deposit, so let's see what happens. I sign a contract, and knowing fully well, if it's a scam, this contract is just basically a bar napkin. And if it can't be enforced because the people turn out to not be real people, well, so be it. But really where the alarm starts going off fully is a couple of days later. They say the client has a problem with their direct deposit and they prefer to send over a check. Now, unfortunately for these scammers, I have read a lot about recent check frauds of where they'll say, we're going to send you $200. They send you $2,000. Oops, typo. Can you reimburse us the $1,800? And then up to 90 days later, that check bounces because fraud takes a long time to identify by your bank. So you're out $1,800 and you never made the money you thought you made. So I'm already kind of super on edge. I'm starting to get nervous now because I'm worried that this is probably a scam and they have my account and routing numbers. But the real kind of caveat that I want everybody that ever is paid in a check to take away from this is the check gave a piece of information that I didn't have previously. The check put the formal business name, Pico Interactive LLC, and it gave an address to Lowell, Massachusetts. Now, Pico Interactive is not an LLC. It's an INC owned by ByteDance. There's a Pico Interactive with a K, and often typos are the red herring and these kinds of things. But they're a third-party reseller of vintage Nintendo products. So it's not that company, and it's not the ByteDance-owned company. And the address went back to a company that makes supply lines kind of materials that are used to make bread. Wow. So not even close. At this point, they are also upping the urgency. You need to send us the wire transfer. We have people coming into the studio. They're making up every rule, and the number keeps changing. First, it's, you need to send us 3,000. Well, if you can't do 3,000, it's 25. If you can't, well, oh, now you can do 3,000. Can you do 35? You know, the number keeps changing. And at this point, it's full blown a scam. But the reason why I ever had any ounce of faith in them is because they were using the alias of Elliot Stutzer, who looks like a very reputable guitar teacher in Anchorage, who, you know, from just doing some research, it's very possible that a guy like this could moonlight as, working as a music supervisor for an ad agency, especially in a small little area like Anchorage, Alaska.
Right.
So I DM'd him on Instagram. He actually just got back to me and said he's aware of the scam, but I wanted to make him aware somebody's using your identity to scam artists. And he is aware. He's trying to take it down. But really, I'm so grateful for the timing of this talk that we're having is I wanted to go through every single step and kind of talk about all the things that I picked up on. And no matter how emotionally invested I was, I still kind of retained that sense of distrust, because while we've seen a lot of progress in artist empowerment and the lowering of barriers to entry into being an independent musician, there are still predators out there that are trying to capitalize on people's desire to make it, capitalize on people's ambition, and capitalize on people's emotion, because no matter what you do, you can't remove the emotion from music.
And also, I think there is this sort of confluence of rapidly escalating technological advances in scams, amongst other things. I think even like 5 or 6 years ago, maybe less, the baseline for being scammed online would have required relatively low digital literacy, right?
Yeah.
Where you send someone a Visa gift card or whatever. But I think at this point, just a little bit of clever social engineering, or maybe just clicking through the wrong email that was spoofed, there are so many opportunities for people to be scammed. And although it's by no means exclusive to music, I think it's really kind of a kick while you're down in music, because we know it's so hard to make a living in music.
It is. Yeah. And I think it's ever more challenging to spot that it's scam too. One thing that I've taken so many, phishing trainings just from my day job over the years. And one of the major things to look out for are typos and, just English that doesn't English, so to speak. Yeah. But with ChatGPT, those days are gone. It's so easy. And, with Google Voice, like anyone can impersonate a number anywhere, not to pick on anyone or anything, but, there is a tendency for scams often to originate in Nigeria. And the one person who had called me, taking the name Greg Young, I presume he was taking the identity of somebody who is on Social Security for disability. It's the only Greg Young in Anchorage, Alaska that I could find anywhere on the internet. It's just a LinkedIn account that says SSI disability. So probably somebody that can't defend his identity.
Yeah.
And when I picked up the phone, at first I couldn't place the accent, but the next time I heard it, I was like, I get it. If the voice doesn't match the name or the identity, it's very easy to kind of rationalize that in your head. Like I said, the first time I heard the voice, I was like, that's a curious accent, but I've never met anyone from Alaska. So you kind of gaslight yourself.
Right.
And then, as the ruse starts to kind of dissipate, you start to hear the facts. And I just hope that others can kind of be very savvy if put in this position, because it's getting harder and harder to spot, because things like ChatGPT will make a lot of the obvious errors go away. And who knows what kind of AI they might have used to generate that fake ad campaign, because that is as legit a campaign as a campaign would sound. I went to school for advertising, and it sounded right.
Yeah, that's the other kind of element to remember here, is that if you need that sort of portfolio from the scammer to demonstrate credibility just on first glance, what it used to would have been much more complex, or just you would have had to steal something and then put it on your own site. Now you could just whip something up with a generator and it looks fine, to your point.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's really important for anyone in the creative fields, anyone who, or I would even expand that, like anyone who's trying to be sort of like an independent business person, or like basically anyone who's trying to make content, or anyone who's just operating independently and trying to make a name for themselves, that there's countless sharks out there who would just like to take a bite from you, and you got to be real careful.